1 month without a Screenments video. Imagine what that does to a man. So today we're back. We're back with another wave of Persona 3 Reload info. Not quite as much as last time. I think the last info drop we got is probably going to be the biggest we ever get, because that was when we got finally introduced to all the characters. We got the demos being given to journalists and also being at those public events. There was a lot of stuff, but this is still quite a good one. Quite a juicy one. A lot of stuff to unpack here. And of course, just like last time, I broke down all of the new info we got straight as it happened on my Twitter. And if you're not following it, you should join 1,400 other people and follow it. You should also subscribe to the channel, but that one goes without saying. So let's get into, there's a lot of new stuff to get into still. So let's go over it. So of course, once again, the first thing to drop on Reload Day, batch number 3 of info, I think, was of course the Japanese and English trailers. They dropped at exactly 5 a.m., which I did end up staying up for to see. That led to me staying up 24 hours by the time I had broke all this information, so I was very tired by the end of this, but a man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. I wouldn't miss this for the world, quite frankly. So, of course, I'm not going to show the trailers here. I'm going to assume you've either already seen them, and if you haven't, we're going to go over all the info anyways. There's no use in me watching the entire trailer. The big focus of this trailer, since we already have had all the SEAS members unveiled, is now focusing on unveiling the Strega members of Persona 3. Of course, we have Takaya, Jin, and Chidori as the 3 Strega members, and I think their 3D models are looking pretty good. Pretty much what you'd expect from, you know, them being put in this style. We did get to see their portraits, and I'll talk a little bit more about how they look when we get to that, but I also want to talk about another character that got unveiled. Well, not unveiled because she was kind of in the last one, but now we get a better look at her. Elizabeth. We got a very brief look at her date hangouts in the trailer, how some of them are going to look. And here's the closer looks we got at these characters. I really like, actually, this render of Takaya. I think this looks really good. And while I'm still probably more partial to the original style of the character renders and whatnot, I still think this art style is really nice too. Of course, Takaya isn't the only one we got renders of. We have Jin here as well, with his grenade in hand, looking as stylish as ever. I say looking as stylish as ever, but now that I think about it, what is this, like, Ben 10-ass fit? Yeah, dresses like a toddler. Of course, we have Chidori, who's looking quite interesting. I actually really like the way they're drawing her here. She's always had a really interesting, almost like emo-esque look. Is that the right word? I mean, the whole game's emo, to be honest with you, but this is a very interesting. I've always liked the look she had, and I think they brought it out really well here. Now, with that render, too, like, God, why is she looking at me like that? Jesus. I've seen some conflicting opinions on the way they're drawing her here. I think some people might think they're making her, maybe she's slaying a little too hard. But honestly, I like it. I actually like the look. Of course, we got everyone's favorite Elizabeth. She's looking the way you'd expect her to. She's honestly the one who's probably changed the least in this style. Like, she still looks really similar to the way she did in the original P3 to me. Like, she's converted, I guess, the most faithfully to this style, if that's the right word. Like, even her portrait looks like an HD texture pack on the original game, okay? Like, it's really looking pretty much the same that she did in the original. She's even got, look at that. She's even got her hand in the frame still. Look at that. Is that her hand? Yeah, it's definitely her hand. She's like holding the text box. That's nice of her. But those actually aren't the last characters we saw. We also got a better look at Ikutsuki here. I think we saw him briefly in the trailer, but now we have his character render. It's kind of low quality, but it is what it is. And a screenshot of him here. You know, I don't have too much to say about Ikutsuki. He looks fine. He's converted to the style well enough. Not blowing me away, but not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. But we also got a look at Pharaohs. It's also been confirmed that the voice actor of Makoto will also be doing Pharaohs and Ryoji, same way it was in the original game. Makes sense. Pharaohs, he's looking actually pretty good. I think he's converted to the style pretty well. He is doing the Yosuke, as a lot of people have been pointing out. But hey, he's looking good. And hold on, one more character here. Ryoji's been revealed as well. He's looking great in the style. I actually think he's one of my my more preferred characters in this style. Again, not really much more to comment about. I don't know how, like, I can't give you an essay on these character portraits because they look the same they did in the original, but in this new style, and most of them have converted pretty well. Don't got too much to say, but hey, nice to see them around. And those are all the new characters we got to see here. Of course, maybe not as interesting as the characters we saw last time, getting the last members of C's, but I still really hope they're going to do well with these characters, because I loved the idea of Strega in the original Persona 3, but I always thought there could have been more to them, and we'll get into how they're going to do more with them in this remake, and I'm really excited to see how that pans out. But before we get into any of that, let's talk about, to me anyways, what's the most interesting part of the trailer, the music, okay? It's Persona, the music has to be good, and the way I feel about some of these are conflicting. But let's start with the most prominent song in the trailer, the new rearranged version of Changing Seasons, featuring the new singer for Persona 3 Reload. I will play a little bit of it, and then I'll give my opinion on it afterwards.
You guys don't have the slightest clue what'll happen if the Dark Hour disappears, do you?
What do you mean?
Do you really want to lose your abilities?
That's about all I've got going for me. Without this power, I'd be a nobody.
To all customers, please do not move in the opposite direction of the escalators.
I'm gonna make pancakes.
It's pancake party time, as they say.
We don't have much time left.
If the Dark Hour disappears, we might forget everything that happened.
That's about the gist of it. I won't play the full thing, but I am very much enjoying this remix. Or this rearranged version of the song. I actually really like this track. I was mixed about the Mass Destruction Reload rearrangement that we heard in the last batch of songs, but I did like It's Going Down Now, but this has been the first song that I've really connected with. Like, I actually... this is the first song where I'm like, fuck, now I really want to hear the soundtrack, because I want to hear a clean version of this. Like, I have been replaying this for the past day or two since the trailer dropped. I've just been like, just listen to the way the chorus hits. By the way, totally new that there's even a chorus in general. The original Changing Seasons, if you recall, didn't have many lyrics. It basically just... It did have these French parts in the background, which we'll get to, but... It had these vocals in the background, not really lyrics, though. Of course, that's where the French comes in, but there were never actually any, like, proper lyrics to it besides this little French breakdown that's mixed in the... kind of in the back of the instrumental. It's not really at the forefront. But this version of the rearrangement gives the song lyrics, a lot more lyrics. And this chorus is so good. I keep replaying this part. I love it.
To all customers, please do not move in the opposite direction of the escalators.
I'm gonna make pancakes.
It's pancake party time, as they...
Like, oh my god, it's so good. So, yeah, I am very positive on this track. I really want to hear the full version. It does sound, though, that part that I was talking about in the original song that had a French breakdown, that breakdown is still here, but it sounds like the lyrics are English now. You're going to have to try really hard to hear it, so I can't really tell or make that claim for sure. But listen to me, or listen to it, sorry, and tell me if it sounds English or French to you, because I really think it sounds... like it's English now, but I can't make out any of the lyrics because of the talking over it.
If the Dark Hour disappears, we might forget everything that happened, won't we? I'd forget you and Chidori. Things...
Like, I can't really make out what the lyrics are, but they sound more English to me, but maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. It's too hard to tell with the version of the song we currently have here. But yeah, huge improvement over Mass Destruction's rearrangement, in my opinion. Really dig this track. Easily my favorite that we've heard in Reload so far. We also did get to hear a very brief version of When the Moon's Reaching Out Stars, the new rearrangement of this track. It seems like they're rearranging almost all the songs from the game. There's one more rearrangement we're going to talk about after this, by the way, from the trailer. Oh, actually, two. But some of them are very slight rearrangements, while some of them are going all out. This one and the Changing Seasons and Mass Destruction are kind of examples of them changing quite a bit about the song. But it seems like for the most part, they might just be redoing the whole soundtrack at this point. I don't think we've heard one song that has been the same as the original. Some people that played the demo and the RPG fan article that we went over in the last video claimed Deep Breath sounded the same, but it might have just been incredibly similar, because there's been a lot of songs that sound the same, but there's like some very slight variations. We'll get into an example of it after this, but first, let's listen to this When the Moon's Reaching Out Star snippet here. So very brief there. Can I be honest with you though? I'm not huge on this version of the song. This is probably my least favorite of the rearranged tracks we've heard so far. Man, this first off, this intro part, whatever they're doing here, I really don't like it. This part, I don't like it. Now it gets better after that. But even the vocals sound a little off to me. Obviously they're different. I don't mind that they're different, but
I never feel like miserable.
I can't say I like the tone, even though it's very similar, as much as the originals. So this version of the song, now we've only heard very little, so who knows? My opinion could change when we hear the full song. But there's a rearranged version of Unavoidable Battle, but you'd be hard-pressed to even tell it's rearranged, because I had to very closely compare this and the original song to even realize that there were like very slight variations. This is incredibly similar to the original. I'll let you hear it, but you might not even hear the differences unless you play them side by side.
There's a new threat. Persona users just like us.
They called themselves Strega.
Somebody's got a grudge against you, and they asked us to get revenge.
No! Stay away!
That's literally all we got of it, and you might be hard-pressed even trying to hear the difference there, but I'm pretty sure there is one, comparing them side by side. Some of the instruments also sound a little bit more intense here, which I like. It's hard to compare them because they're so similar, but if I had to pick one, I think I like this rearrangement the slightest bit more. The instruments just sound like they pop a little bit more. Now, those are all the rearrangements we heard in the trailer, but they did a concert, or less of a concert, more of a stage show. It was a dancing, show, where they showed off a few more rearranged tracks from Persona 3 Reload, either extended versions of things we've already heard, or a straight-up new track, like this track right here, a rearranged version of Joy. I'll let you listen to it and I'll give my take. It might be a little low quality, by the way, because it is a recording of basically the song being played out of a speaker, so you're gonna have to, just try to hear it, basically. That's my take. It sounds very different from the original instrumentally, but if you've heard the Persona Q2 soundtrack, it actually sounds pretty similar to the remix of Joy in that game. Now, this makes sense because Kitajo was the lead composer for both games, but I'll let you listen to this version of the song, and you can definitely hear some similarities, I think. I think this is pretty close to the Reload version. A little different, but instrumentally it sounds pretty similar. We'll get to the part where the sample comes in. So the original version, or the first part of the sample seems to be just removed from the Q2 version of the song, but also it sounds like they re-recorded the sample here. In this rearranged version of the track, from what I can tell, it sounds the same as the original version of the sample from the original song. I don't hate this, but I kind of have a similar take to the Q2 version of the song since they sound so similar. I like the Q2 version of Joy. I like the original better, though. Kind of feel the same way about this one. I like this one, probably even more than I like the Q2 version, but I still like the original more. We also got a rearranged version of Peace, which actually played at the end of the trailer that we got last time. I don't think I mentioned it in that video, but we have an extended version due to the concert. Peace, by the way, is not the same as Want to Be Close. It might sound like it, but this song just uses the same motif. It is in the original Persona 3, but I just don't want people to get the two songs confused. This isn't Want to Be Close. This is Peace, a song that plays during the peaceful events. It uses the same motif, same vocals even, or similar vocals, but it is not the same track. This is the part we got from the trailer last time. So you get the point. This one actually sounds pretty damn similar. Like, let me listen to this beginning part here. Yeah, like, it sounds pretty close. Man, I don't know. It's hard to give a take on this one because it is so similar. It basically comes down to, do I like the vocals more or less? Ooh. Actually, maybe it is a little different instrumentally. Ah, man, this one just nails the tranquil feel of it. I'm sorry, I still gotta go with the original here. This isn't bad, though. Hey, look, it's the editing version of Screen here. I'm here to tell you that a day later, there was more Persona 3 Reload footage unveiled from 4Gamers and Gamer Santai, I think was their name, to, gaming journalist companies, whatever, they were at TGS. And they recorded footage of the game. This gave us a few more songs and other things to talk about, so I'm adding that part in here. So let's start by showing the new version of the Tartarus entrance theme, The Voice Someone Calls.
No.
It sounds pretty close to the original. I probably prefer the instrumentation of the original a little more, but this is similar enough that I don't really mind this, reload version. But I probably do still slightly prefer the original. We also have a very brief snippet of the victory theme after the battle, a rearranged version of that track. It's hard to make a judgment because we didn't actually get to hear when it goes into like the you know that part, the part that comes right after where this fucking footage ends. But so it's hard to make a judgment on whether I like this one more or less. Yeah, I think I'm gonna refrain for now. But I actually think I'm gonna end up enjoying this one more because I actually, from what we've heard here, I kind of like. Oh, I kind of like the. I guess it just sounds a little bit bassier. Listen one more time. I think that the bassy start is a little more prominent, so I think they're going to continue it for that next part there. So yeah, I actually quite like how this rearrangement sounds. And then we have a bombshell of a new track. I say a bombshell because we got a significant portion of it, 3 minutes in total. Master of Tartarus, the mini-boss Tartarus battle theme. Not going to play the whole thing because it's so long, but I will play some of it, of course. Part of the vocals here.
不能の味方がいる。立て直しを図れ。 攻撃を回避。見事だ。やらなきゃ。お願い。いいよ。
I really like the sound of this one. I think the riff sounds great. I think the synth sounds great, and a lot of people have been saying the synth sounds too loud or they're not huge on the sound of it. I disagree. I actually think they nailed this one. Master of Tartarus I liked, but it was never, you know, a super big favorite of mine. But this is actually great. I love this rearrangement. Probably my second favorite rearranged track we've heard so far, behind Changing Seasons, of course. Oh, we're not done with the music section just yet, because we finally got in longer versions of Mass Destruction Reload, and it's going down now from the concert as well. Pretty much full versions, actually. I think we pretty much have the full versions of both. Yeah, nice. I'm not going to play the original version of Mass Destruction Reload in this video, because we've already heard a lot of it from the last info dump. But I do want to point out a few things that I actually like about Mass Destruction Reload that we didn't get to hear in the first debut of the song, I guess. So, for starters, if you remember the original Mass Destruction from the original Persona 3, there's a funny quirk about it that's really not annoying at all. It's the fact that the original version of the song is just one verse. If you probably noticed this if you played the game, especially with how much you hear this song. But after the first verse and the chorus, it's the same verse from Lotus Juice again. You'd finally get a second verse to the song in FES, but then that song would just repeat the same one verse. In dancing, they finally combine the two. But in general, a big problem I have with Mass Destruction is, unlike like Last Surprise or Takeover, which we'd get in Persona 5, that have multiple verses, this song just has the one that just repeats. This Reload Mass Destruction seems to have different verses. The first is very reminiscent of the original verse from the original Mass Destruction, but the second and third seem to be original, and I'm happy about that. Especially when you're hearing these songs so much, it'd be nice when they go on longer to actually have some variation rather than just them repeating themselves. So I'll play a little bit of those verses here. See? New verse. I'm not going to comment on how the verse, sounds or anything, because this isn't the best way of listening to it through a concert speaker. But I'm happy in general that there are different verses. But the last thing I want to point out about the track is the third verse, because I really like something they do with it. So if you can hear it there, while Lotus Juice's final verse is kind of going on, they kind of splice in the chorus vocals from the female singer, and I really like that. I actually think that's a really interesting idea, and I think it works really well here. I didn't like Mass Destruction Reload that much in the last video when we got the second batch of info, but it's actually really grown on me hearing this part of it. I really like this third verse. I really like that it has multiple verses. I think I'm kind of taking a different take on the song now that we've heard more of it. I'm still not as big on the chorus as I was in the original. It's pretty much the same chorus, just with the new singer, and I do like the way the old singer sounds on it better, especially the way she does the baby here. It's pronouncing it baby rather than baby. It just doesn't hit as hard, okay? Listen. It just sounds wrong. But besides that, Lotus Juice wise, in terms of the Lotus Juice performance and just his sections of the song, I really like it. And like I said, I really like that third verse having the female vocals layered over it. I think that's a really cool effect. So in general, I wasn't so positive about it in the last video, but now I'm actually kind of digging this remix, or this rearrangement. And for the final song, we're wrapping up the music section, don't worry. We got the full version of It's Going Down Now at the Sage Show. I feel pretty much the same way I did about it in the last video. I'm still mostly positive on it, but I do want to point out one section near the end here. This is actually kind of how a lot of songs in Persona 5 did this, where they have 3 verses in its structure, and then the last part is kind of more tranquil. It would go lower before building up the hype again. Like pretty much Takeover, Last Surprise, I believe they all do this. I'll use Takeover as the example here. So you guys know how it sounds initially, right? It sounds like... You get the point. But then they'd always have this little breakdown here where they'd go more tranquil, lower. And then they'd build it back up to go back into the chorus. This is the same structure as Last Surprise, same structure as I Believe. So, same idea. Say your prayers now. Take over, stop it down. Why is it Boogie Down? I always thought it was Put It Down. Then someone told me it was Boogie Down. I'll never look at it the same. Anyways, It's Going Down Now seems to be following the same song structure where there is a kind of breakdown part, a lower tranquil part before they build back into the chorus in the last third of it. You can hear it. I read about this part. He's hitting that. So you get the point. Yeah, I'm fine with the song structure. I actually think it's a really good one. That's probably why they do it so much in Persona 5. The last verse being more of a breakdown, more of a tranquil part before building back up. Look, at this point, it's kind of formulaic because they've done it so much, but it's a good formula. That's probably why they keep doing it. Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I pretty much feel the same as I did when we only heard the beginning of it. I like the song. Not my favorite battle track that the series has ever seen. I like it. I might like it more than Mass Destruction, though, but that's probably just because I've never been too big on Mass Destruction. I do like it, though. But yeah, it's a good battle track. Nothing else to say. Not blowing me away, but good. Not blowing me away like that fucking Changing Seasons rearrangement. Okay, that is incredible. God, I want to hear a clean version of it, man. I wish they played it here at least so I get a low quality version of it. Oh my god, man. Wait a minute. I can't believe I forgot to mention one more song that we got in the trailer. We got a song from Elizabeth. She's singing.
Velvet, oh velvet, my master has a long nose. All together now. Velvet,
I like how they ended the trailer on this.
velvet, my master has a long nose.
Okay then. Somebody also pointed out, and I can't confirm this because I know nothing about sheet music, but somebody did tell me here in the replies that the music written on the whiteboard in the back is the melody to Area of the Soul. That makes sense if that's true. It probably is. Anyways, moving past the music, let's get into what's next. Let's get into something, and let me very, very briefly talk about something that isn't Persona 3 Reload related, but it could actually give us an idea of the soundtrack release of Persona 3 Reload. They did confirm that Persona 5 Tactica's soundtrack will be released alongside the game on November 17th, and will be available on streaming services that exact same day. That's really nice to hear. It's also 106 songs long, and will have 2 unused songs and 2 demo songs of battle songs. I assume demo songs means early versions of them? I don't know. I am going to assume if they're going to do this for Tactica, they'll probably have the same release schedule for Persona 3 Reload. Having the soundtracks on Spotify finally same day that the game comes out is very nice. I do want to point out that I did look at the soundtrack, and while most of them are obviously seem like original songs, it seems like we'll be getting a new Beneath the Mask remix in Tactica. That sounds really nice, new rearrangement. And also a rearrangement of Unrest, which if you don't know what song that is, I don't blame you, but it plays quite a bit in Persona 5. It's this song. I mean, never struck me as an amazing song for Persona 5, but I guess I'm cool with a remix. And here's one more thing from the trailer. It seems to show Fuka. And here's one more thing from the trailer that's interesting. A new mechanic, it seems like. It's sort of new, we'll get into it. But there's footage of Fuka providing buffs, specifically an attack, defense, and agility buff, mid-battle, to the party.
This is the only thing I can do, and yet... Is your mission worth your life?
It's very brief and cuts off kind of early, but I love this animation. It looks really nice. It plays with the water motif that we've seen in a lot of the menus, but in general also reminds me of Rise from Persona 4 and Futaba from Persona 5, how they were able to provide this buff mid-battle. Now, I'm going to get into how it's different from that a little later, but I do want to mention that this technically isn't the first time Futaba's been able to do this. I was reminded in the replies that Fuka could actually do this exact same buff in Persona 3 Portable specifically, as a part of her Oracle skill. Oracle was actually changed in Persona 3 Portable from what it was in FES. Of course, though, Oracle was a skill you could only use once per day, so it's still a little different, and also, Portable was so lazy that, at least in English, the text that plays when buffs occur in Oracle, even though the skills were changed, it still shows the text from the FES version of the skill, if that makes sense. Basically, the text that it says does not reflect what the skill actually is in Persona 3 Portable. Like, here's her casting that exact same buff, the attack, defense, and agility up buff in Portable. Take a look at how it looks.
Invoking Oracle!
So this will be attack, defense, evasion up, but look what it says. As you can see, it says HP, SP fully restored, though you can tell clearly their HP and SP was not restored because it is the attack, defense, evasion up. They copy and pasted the skill description for Oracle from Persona 3 FES, so it doesn't actually accurately reflect what it does in Portable. Thanks, Atlas. They didn't fix this in the new port of Portable, as you can imagine as well. Though in Reload, it doesn't seem like this is a part of her Oracle skill, if her Oracle skill is even returning in Reload. It's going to be a part of a new mechanic that we'll get into, right now. So the trailer that dropped yesterday was not the only source of information that we got on Persona 3 Reload yesterday. We also had Atlas at the Tokyo Game Show that took place yesterday give a media briefing. In this media briefing, they showed a lot of gameplay and also explained a lot of things. One of the things they explained was finally what this gauge beside the characters means. Hey, past me, dickhead, listen.
Gauge.
Moron. One of the things they explained was finally what this
gauge
beside the characters means. I don't even remember if I mentioned it in the last video, but you could see it briefly in some of the trailers that released before, but now we finally have an explanation as to what this gauge is. It's also much more prominent in the new trailer as well. So they have this Theurgy gauge, that's what this the gauge they fill up is, and what the Famitsu article said is that it seems the actions that increase the Theurgy gauge differ depending on the character. We'll get into that because that's actually a really cool little detail about it. With some characters attacking and others recovering, when used, a unique animation and a unique action and animation will activate. I'll try to explain this a little bit more in depth here. So we have this mechanic named Theurgy. You can press right trigger to activate it, which makes sense why Baton Pass, I mentioned this in the last video, Baton Pass was moved to left trigger when it was right trigger in Persona 5 Royal. It seems now we have the reason for that. Theurgy is now right trigger. Don't know why Theurgy couldn't just be left trigger and Baton Pass can remain right trigger, but whatever. Of course, as we said, you can activate the attack whenever the gauge is maxed, and it's this big attack that characters can do. Now, some characters seem to have a Theurgy attack, and some of them seem to have a Theurgy heal. So here's an example of what the Theurgy attacks look like in the game. This is from the TGS gameplay footage. This is Junpei's Theurgy attack, and there's also a closer look at the victory screen at the end here, so I'll go over that as well.
ね、はい。これをこう出てますね。この全部説明。バーストス。じゃあ打ってみましょう。
おお、演出。あ、ここやった。
これ順平君っぽい。
うん。わあ、強いね。トータル600。はい。え、これとどめ。
So let's unpack here. Well, actually, not too much. Basically, you get the idea of what a Theurgy attack is. It's basically a big attack. Maybe you can think of it like the show times from P5R, but they differ in a lot of ways. They're only really similar in the sense that they're both big attacks that you can, set off. But as the Famitsu article mentioned, not every character's is an attack like this. For starters, they do different types of damage. This one, specifically Junpei's here, has I believe this is a pierce symbol? God, I am so bad at this. I always get them mixed up. No, this is slash, right? Yeah, it's slash, because Junpei's slash. Yeah, this is slash. But yeah, so this is basically what these attacks will be. We can also see a look at the victory screen here. It's a really cool, just like zoom in on the character that was the one who won the fight. Then you zoom out and see the larger party, and then you get into shuffle time. So it's cool. We also have a very brief clip of Yukari in the victory screen of the game. So there's Yukari's very, very brief victory animation in this screen. But talking more about the Theurgy attacks, that Fuka thing that we saw earlier, Fuka giving that buff to the party, seems to be her Theurgy attack. An easy way to tell seems to be that their personas kind of glow red when they're doing it, and Fuka's persona seems to be glowing red during this thing here. Well, we can't say 100%, it's probably pretty likely, especially since the Famitsu article, once again, says some Theurgy attacks heal, and some do damage. Now, I'm curious as to how this will be implemented, though. As you can see here, it's none of the party's turn while she's doing this, which leads me to believe that this isn't something you activate through, like the tactics menu or something. So I wonder how it's going to be activated. When Fuka gets her bar up, will it just activate automatically? Will she ask you every turn cycle? That seems like it would get really annoying really quick, especially when I'm trying to save it for like a boss fight or something, so I doubt they'd go that route. I don't know, I guess we're just going to have to wait for more details on it, but yeah, this seems to be a part of her Theurgy attack. She'll give you a buff. Either it'll be a random buff, maybe you'll choose the buff, who knows. We also get a very brief look at Mitsuru's Theurgy attack from the trailer, like literally 2 seconds, so I'll just play it here.
Had you not decided to eliminate...
Very brief, as I said, but you can see it's an ice-based attack, which makes sense, since Mitsuru is mainly an ice user. Here's a screenshot of Yukari's Theurgy attack. She's using her bow, so it's probably going to be pierce damage. And then certainly the most interesting of the Theurgy attacks, the protagonist. Oh wow, I just found this out for the first time actually. I didn't even know this. Oh, it seems like they are named Theurgy attacks in English. I guess I missed that when I saw the official English version of these things. Theurgy seems to be the Japanese name. Oh, okay. So never mind, they are Theurgy attacks. That's much easier for me to say. Anyways, what I was going to say was the protagonist Theurgy attacks seem the most interesting to me because of a certain returning mechanic, I guess you could say. But first I want to mention that the Famitsu article said that you fill your Theurgy gauge through different means for every character, and it seems to say it right here. For the protagonist, after summoning a persona, power within gradually enhances. So I guess summoning a persona would be what fills the protagonist Theurgy bar. So we saw what fills the protagonist Theurgy gauge. Now let's talk about what fills what fills Junpei's. Now this text is Google translated, so it's not the greatest translation, but it says, "When I score a critical hit with an attack, I look forward to my own potential and am filled with energy. Critical booster." So I assume what this means is his gets filled when you hit crits, critical attacks. So yeah, I actually really like this mechanic and how it's all working out. I think the big attacks were a good idea. They had a similar idea, like I said, with the show times and P5R. Those also had certain very subtle triggers to them. When characters die, when Joker's low health, when characters are revived or whatever. That seems to be a few trigger, or when you're surrounded too, I think there's a higher chance of getting it. I'm not 100% sure about that. But there are certain things that trigger the show times in P5R, but it feels seemingly random and maybe even a little too common. This gives you something, a gauge where you're like, well, I can use it, you know, instead of using pretty much the show times almost every time you get them because you're like, well, I'm not going to get it back. This is something you save up and make a conscious decision to use. And also, you have different things, different ways that you're encouraged to play the characters if you want to build up these Theurgy attacks. In general, I actually really like this idea. I think it's really cool. But let's get back to the protagonist Theurgy attacks, because there's something very unique about that one that's different from all the other characters. As you can see with the protagonist Theurgy attack here, it is Cadenza on this screenshot, and it says it restores 50% HP. It's what Cadenza did in the original game, effectively. This means that this is how fusion spells are gonna work in the game. We saw the Jack Bros fusion spell in the last trailer, which confirmed fusion spells were coming back, but we didn't really know how. And now we have confirmation that it's going to be through the Theurgy attacks. Now, I'm curious if that means you'll still need to have the one of the original personas that the fusion spell is attached to or not to actually do the fusion spell. But regardless, I think this is actually a really cool way of implementing them. As you can see, there's even arrows in this screenshot here where the attack is, meaning you could probably cycle through them. There's also a screenshot here of the two personas doing the Cadenza fusion spell here. And yeah, I actually think that's a really cool way of implementing them with this new mechanic. And I'm also going to assume that what we read about in the interview from the last batch of info, where the Yamaguchi, the game's director, said, as you may have guessed, it's not just an armband, but also has battle-related features, referring to this kind of new armband on the characters. You'll have to wait a little bit longer to find out more information, though. I'm going to assume these Theurgy attacks is what he was referring to. Now, we don't actually have the animation of the Cadenza attack here, but we do have the animation of the King and I fusion spell Theurgy attack. King and I was the King Frost and Black Frost fusion spell. Let's take a look at it here. I really like how Makoto literally gets knocked over by just how huge King Frost is. It's like a nice little detail. There's also the victory screen from when you win with Makoto here. It's also really cool looking. Love his little smirk here. But yeah, it's pretty much what you'd expect. It's pretty reminiscent of the original. But like I said, I do like him knocking over Makoto. That is a pretty funny little detail. So yeah, I think this is a really cool mechanic in general. I really like how they tied it to fusion spells. I think that's really smart. I really like how you have to get the mechanic up by doing certain things with certain characters. In general, I'm very positive on this mechanic. I think it's a really cool mechanic. I just have the fear that I hope this game is balanced with these mechanics in mind. A big problem that a lot of the Persona 4 and 5 specifically, more so 5, had, that it had all these great mechanics with confidant abilities and show times and all these other great mechanics in the game, and I wouldn't remove any of them, I love them, but the game wasn't balanced with them in mind, which means that all these mechanics conflicting together made the game kind of pretty easy and balanced too strongly in the player's favor. So I hope that they've taken that into account with all these mechanics in Persona 3 Reload. There's no way of knowing right now. We got footage from TGS, like I said, but there isn't really... they're just playing regular battles, and plus we don't even know the difficulty they were on. We don't have enough details to really know, based on that footage, if the game is too easy or not. We're definitely going to have to wait to find out more about that. Okay, how about we talk about menus? So in the last info batch, we got some screenshots of the gorgeous-looking menus in Persona 3 Reload. Here is actually video from TGS of how these menus look in motion. So, starting with the skill screen here. Now, unfortunately in this footage, they don't actually use a skill, but I'm going to assume Our hope anyways. It certainly looked like it more when it was a still screenshot, but I'm hoping that Makoto's gun will shoot the skill that you're using in the skill menu here, like we had initially theorized back in the last info batch. I don't know, because I don't actually use a skill here, but it would be cool. They show the status menu, and there's something really, really cool about the status menu. I hope I hope you're all excited to see. Something really cool about this glass shard that we saw here. I'm just gonna let it speak for itself and play the footage here.
セクシーじゃないですか。なんか
そうですね。
グラビアポーズとってるじゃないですか。
結構こうふわっと浮きながらで他のキャラクター選んだりするとこうここが
Look
変
at
わるんですよ。
that. Oh my god.
そこは
When you scroll over the characters in your party,
でそれを選
it shows their portrait in the glass rather than just Makoto's. That is such a cool little detail. Like, oh, this menu already looked so good. It was probably my favorite looking menu from the original screenshots, and this just adds another layer of dopeness onto it. Like, oh my god, it looks so good. Ah, god, I'm so excited. Unfortunately, they didn't show just Koromaru's or Fuka's, but yeah, you get the gist. And also a new look at a new menu here that we didn't see in the original screenshots, the system menu. And Makoto comes down with the number 9 here. I'll explain maybe the significance of that a little bit later. Actually, we can explain the significance right now. Why not? So, Faz tweeted out a screenshot of the menu, and he said, I have no clue, or sorry, not a screenshot, but a video of the menu. And he said, I have no clue what this means, but it looks very cool, referring to the number 9 that Makoto comes down with. Now, here's finally an opportunity for me to let my useless Persona knowledge shine. It seemed like nobody else really had the answer to it in the thing either. Seems like no one said, people are making memes, Persona 9 teaser, it means 9, thank you. This is the 9th Persona game. Obviously, all these are just memes. I had what seemed like the only actual real answer. Now, I believe it's because it's the 9th menu option. If you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, system is the 9th option in the menus here, and this actually isn't the first time a Persona game has done this. When you scroll over the different pause menu options in Persona 5, the number in the background here, in this case it's number 7 because it's scrolled over request, which is the 7th menu option, the number would change. Here's even a GIF showing it in some better detail here. It's hard to see, but see it's 1 when you're over skilled, then you scroll over item, it's 2, scroll over equip, it's 3. So yeah, really cool detail that I guess they're bringing over to Persona 3 Reload. Now, it seems like this is the only menu where they're actually showing the number, so it seems a little out of place, but if you look in the background here, you can see they show the other menus kind of in the background. It's very low quality, but that says, like, status. This says calendar, I think. This says system, so, you know, I guess it's just, like, the overarching system menu. Hey, buddy. What do you think of Persona 3 Reload?
Looking cool, Joker!
Mid. True. Okay. Now, keeping in line with all the other English voice actors in Persona 3 Reload, Takaya, Jin, Chidori, and Akutsuki all have new English voice actors. What's funny, though, is Elizabeth is the only one who's kept her original English VA. Now, I have seen some crackpot theories, okay? That this means that Elizabeth is... Actually, this is going to be connected somehow, and it's going to be a different timeline or something, but Elizabeth has followed through, so she can follow Makoto in any timeline, and she's the original one. And I will be honest, if you want me to confirm or deny these theories based on what I've seen, do I think this theory is true? No. For starters, wow, what a leap. Going from... hey, she still has the same voice actor, too. This is all connected some way. It's a bit of a leap, but also, when you take into account that the Japanese cast of the game, which is, of course, the original language, all those voice actors are reprising their roles from the original game. Makoto is still Makoto, Yukari is the original Yukari VA, you know, so on and so forth. That theory starts to fall apart, because obviously they weren't writing it with the English cast in mind. Obviously, it's a Japanese game. The Japanese voices are the original. They're writing it with the Japanese cast in mind. So, yeah, I think people dug way too deep into something that probably isn't as deep as they think. Now, another mechanic, and I think I'm blocking it, so hold on. Another mechanic that's been shown in this this system screen here is rollback. You can see it right over here. Now, what does rollback mean? What does it do? Well, the Famitsu article actually answers this question. Now, the way they explained the rollback function was they said it will be implemented in the work which will meet the needs of those who want to go back one step and redo things. It will be possible to go back several steps, but more details will be provided when available. So we don't have too much, but it seems pretty clear what it probably is. You can probably roll back to an earlier segment of the day, or an earlier day, or whatever. So, basically, let's say that I'm doing, I don't know, I'm doing a run, and I'm like, oh, it's Sunday, and I want to go out and, see, you know, what social links are out there. But then I'm like, oh no, wait a minute. If I leave the dorm, I've already left the dorm, and now the hermit link isn't available. Fuck, now I'm locked out of the hermit link. Oh my god, now I can't do it today. Now I'm going to have to either cope or reload a save file, because Persona 3 decides that once you leave your house, you simply cannot go back in until it is evening. It's impossible. This rollback feature can be used for things like that, to go, oh, well, I can just roll back the day to make up for that, you know, and I can go back and I can fix that issue. Now, I understand that not everyone will want to use this feature. I probably won't be using it in my normal playthroughs. Maybe when I inevitably do 100% and I make a mistake like I just said, I'm gonna end up reloading my save anyways when I make that mistake. Might as well just roll back, because it's literally the same thing, except more convenient. But you know, if you don't want to use the feature, you absolutely don't have to. It's just an extra accessibility thing. It's literally the same as reloading a save file, except more convenient. That's pretty much it. As you can imagine, though, Megaten and Persona fans will complain about literally anything. I'm convinced at this point, I said this on Twitter, that if Atlus hired a magic genie, okay? And they told this magic genie, can you make objectively the perfect video game, okay? I don't know how you do that, but let's say you could. It's a magic genie, okay? You can do anything, right? Megaten and Persona fans would still find a way to complain about that. People were saying this misses the point of why they added a calendar to the series in the first place. Okay, I mean, yeah, I mean, going back and, you know, fixing any issues you have might defeat the purpose of the time management thing, but again, you don't have to use it. You know what else defeats the purpose of the time management thing? Using a guide, but some people choose to do that even on their first playthrough. I wouldn't do it, but it's their fucking prerogative, right? It's their playthrough. Like, you don't have to use the... Do they realize you don't have to... Do they realize that Alice is having a gun to your head telling you to use this feature? They also said it spits in the face of a game's main theme. Is the main theme of Persona 3 the calendar system? I think it's death. I didn't really get what they meant by this. I said, the theme of this game is ruined because of an optional feature. This line of thinking makes perfect sense, I'm sure. Surely there's a rational reason to be thinking this. Surely it could be applied to other video games and make sense there as well. Surely. Somebody said, I feel like the big discomfort comes from the feature. Currently, it is how it so clearly demonstrates that the themes of 3 were pushed out by the modern Persona design ethos of no worries, you can single perfect playthrough where you see everything all in one go. I don't even get what they mean here. Do they mean it's possible to 100% Persona 4 and 5? Is that a bad thing? Couldn't you 100% Persona 3 as well? Is it a bad thing that you can? Shouldn't you be able to, but you just have to manage your time really well? Isn't that kind of the point? That's supposed to be really difficult? Again, also, you don't... Guys, the themes are ruined again. I don't know how 100%ing Persona 3 Reload ruins its themes anyways, but whatever, because Atlus is forcing me to use this feature, just like how they forced me to use a guide to 100% P4 and 5. They keep forcing me to do these things. And then, of course, I brought up another example of something where Persona 5, and, you know, most video games in general, have the option for a safe difficulty. And the safe difficulty basically makes it so it's impossible to lose any fights. You know, it's basically there if you just want to see the stories, or you don't want very difficult combat at all, right? You just want the difficulty to basically be non-existent. So it's there for people who want to do that. Of course, I don't play on safe difficulty, but if you do, there's no problem with that. So I said, did anyone else feel like the safe difficulty really ruined the themes of Persona 5? I mean, really, a difficulty option where it's basically impossible to lose? I'll never forgive them for adding it and forcing me to select it every time I play the game. I just don't, like... This is like the same people who complain there's like an easy difficulty option, and it's like, you don't have to use it. You realize that, right? If you're complaining about this, I'm going to assume you'd probably complain about there being a safe difficulty or even an easy difficulty because they're there and they make the game easier, even though you don't have to. Like, it's so bizarre that people will literally complain about getting more options. So of course, I made a meme as well to convey my opinions here. I wrote, Atlas, hey, we added this new feature to our game where you can rewind to a previous day. This isn't much different from loading a previous save, but now the feature is streamlined. Of course, like any safe or easier difficulty option in a video game, it's entirely optional, and you don't have to use it. That being said, we think more options is a good thing for players that want to use them, and here is a very normal person's reaction to this information. Yeah, that I think this pretty much sums up my thoughts on this insane discourse. Persona fans truly never fail, and just Megaten fans in general, never fail to complain about the absolute stupidest things and start discourse over the dumbest of things. And if you think there are more people complaining about it, some of the responses are insane. It's up to developers to craft the correct experience for players, not cave in to whiny fans and then say you can just not play it. And then they linked a YouTube video, how game designers protect you from... I'm not watching this, by the way, I literally don't care. But I'm almost certain that this game is talking... So, and I will admit that I'm not watching this shit, okay? But I'm going to assume, just based on some of the chapter names and just the name of the video, right? And the fact that nobody is actually dumb enough to ever make this argument, that this is probably talking about how games are made easier and encourage certain things through its mechanics, which is literally what these chapters say, rather than saying, oh, optional, I guess you could even call it an accessibility option, optional accessibility options are bad or something. Like obviously, I would be very surprised if this 5.5 million view video with these chapter names and whatnot makes this argument. But if somebody has this type of take, I wouldn't be surprised if they can't understand literally anything being said to them. So, whatever. I responded, good thing I responded, good thing the developers crafted the rollback function for players who want to use it then. You people will bitch about having more options, and this option is just a streamlined version of a feature that exists in basically all video games, which includes the original Persona 3, obviously. Stop being dumb. You know, I love these games, and to some extent, I love the community I've crafted, and I do like certain sections of the Persona community, but in general, holy fuck, dude. I've never seen a community irrationally hate, because obviously criticism is warranted and criticism is fair, but irrational and insane criticism is not. I've never seen a fan base hate and irrationally criticize great games that they get on like a pretty good basis too, like Megaten and Persona fans. I'm not saying you have to like Persona 3 Reload or anything Atlas has done recently or just in general, but please, if you don't like those games, to make actual good criticisms of them and not shit like this. What a bizarre thing to get upset about. Anyways, if you want to talk criticism, I actually do have a criticism of something that is extending from what I said all the way back when we had the first batch of info. Now, you've already heard my critiques of some of the new music, so that you've already heard, but I want to point out just one thing. If I can find... Is it in the trailer? Yeah, in general, there's probably better screens than this, but in general, I think the lighting and the post-processing, something I criticized when we had our first trailers of the game, actually look pretty good in most areas. I really like a lot of the lighting in Tartarus for the most part. I really like just how it looks in some other areas like this. The dorm still looks weird to me. There are better screenshots than this, but in general, the dorm almost looks, I don't know how many people know the term full bright, but just, it looks like the brightness is just, like, totally maxed out. Like, I feel like there isn't moody enough lighting for a game like Persona 3. I think the original game, even on the PS2, with its much more limited effects, was able to capture the vibe of what I think the dorm should be, way better than this is. I'm really not liking the look of the dorm, which is really unfortunate, because walking around the dorm in the original Persona 3 and talking to all the characters and whatnot, it's such a vibe. I love the dorm in the original game. So it looking the way it does is a little unfortunate to me. That's pretty much like the last of like my major criticisms outside of some of the music. But this is possibly my biggest critique of the game so far. And hey, one of my biggest critique of the game is lighting. It's probably a pretty good game, especially when it's only lighting in one aspect of it. Like I said, most of the other areas, maybe some of Tartarus looks a little weird, but most of Tartarus I think looks pretty good, and most areas seem to look pretty good in terms of processing, post-processing, and effects and lighting and whatnot. But the dorm's really my major complaint here. Anyways, back on the topic of menus, because we're actually not done. I showed the status screen, but I didn't show the kind of when you click on the characters themselves and how their status screen portraits look. So we have how Makoto's looks here. We have Yukari's. I love the pose she's doing here. It looks very stylish. We have Junpei, and I also like how they actually break down the attack type, their main attack type here too. That's pretty cool. We have Koromaru. Did I just call Akihiko Koromaru? We have Akihiko here. Jesus. He's looking great. He's by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this in the last video, Akihiko is my favorite Persona 3 character, so very happy to see him, really at any point. We have Mitsuru here, who's looking great. We have Fuka here, Aegis, who's looking really good, and Koromaru. By the way, for the attack type thing, by the way, it seems like it's breaking down simply their, what physical attack they use, not their actual, because obviously Mitsuru would be ice mainly, and Akihiko would probably be electricity mainly, but they are breaking down the specifically what physical attack they use. Also, we got a little teaser of a male mechanic from a earlier screenshot during near the second info dump, but now we finally have confirmation on what that feature is like. So it seems like the characters are going to send you emails, people like Junpei and whatnot, to hang out. And then, you know, you can kind of do their social link or their hangout or whatever. But you might be thinking, hey, I thought it was confirmed in Persona 3 Reload that characters like Junpei, the male party members who didn't have social links in the original Persona 3, aren't getting social links in Reload either. You'd be right. But the new Famitsu article confirmed that there are new hangouts for male party members. I believe they're called link episodes, at least that's how it translated from Google Translate, but that might not be the final name in the English version of the game. There are hangouts for the male party members who don't have social links. By receiving invitations to bond, you can discover a new side of the characters. By watching specific link episodes, your stat strengthening and new persona combinations will be unlocked. So to be honest with you, when they initially announced that the male party members weren't going to be getting social links, I was a little worried. Because I would have far preferred having characters like Persona 3 Portable's female route gave the male party members social links, but had to remove some of the original social links that are from the male route. But I actually think they did a pretty good job of picking the ones to remove. All the ones they removed are like pretty much most of my least favorites in Persona 3. So I was a little worried they weren't going to do that again, but this seems like a pretty good compromise. This seems like the best way to do it, to keep those original social links, keep it how it originally was in terms of the SLs, but also add on new content and give these characters an extensive backstory, an extensive social link, an extensive way to bond with them effectively, right? Whatever the social link is going to be about. So this is a pretty good compromise in my opinion. I honestly think this is actually probably the best way they could have gone about it. I'm actually pretty happy about it. I can't say that it's executed perfectly yet, because of course we don't have anything outside of a few screenshots that won't load because of Twitter. But I think in general this is actually probably the best way they could have gone about it. So yeah, overall pretty positive on this whole social link idea, this whole social link mechanic, or link episode mechanic, sorry, really think they did a good job of combining the two. And hey, way earlier in this video, I mentioned something about Strega and how they're going to be kind of added on to a little bit more, because as I said before, I like the idea of Strega in P3, but I always felt they were a little undercooked. Well, looking at the Famitsu article, it seems to state that the new video focuses on the members of Strega, Takaya, Jin, and Chidori. In addition, a new episode focusing on Strega will be added to this work, allowing you to enjoy the story of Strega as a whole. And we already have from the trailer a few screenshots of some new, and also from the websites, and I'll show those in just a second, some new scenes featuring Strega. So something interesting from the screenshots that we got of this new Strega content is the first one here. It'll load. So this first screenshot seems to show us talking to Takaya, and he says, "Your indifference and arrogance are an insult to all of my fellow countrymen." So there's clearly some sort of discussion they're having here. But more importantly, the second one is most interesting, featuring an interesting looking Abaddon. And this screenshot has Takaya saying, "If there is a common threat, are you willing to fight together?" Now, there are a few things this could mean, but I'm really hoping what it means, and I'm willing to place my bet that this is what it means. Is that we are going to be fighting, whatever shadow this is, with Takaya. Now, not that we're going to be friends with Takaya or anything, obviously, but as he says here, there's a common threat, and the English version of this line even translates as, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend, is it?" This has people theorizing that maybe you'll be doing a few battles with, Makoto and Takaya together, and I think that would be great. It's actually funny, because when I say Takaya, or when I say Strega, it's actually funny, because when I say Strega felt undercooked to me a little bit in P3, I kind of feel the same about them as I did Akechi in Vanilla Persona 5, where I liked him and I thought there were a lot of cool elements, but I feel like we didn't get enough of him to really have it all come to fruition. And then when Royal came out and gave Akechi so much more content, they brought his character to the moon and made him amazing. And I'm really hoping these new Strega episodes will do the same thing with them, because I love the concept of the character of Takaya, and even Jin Chidori to a lesser extent. So I think if we just give them more and we flesh them out a little bit more, they can become truly great, just like Akechi did in Royal. And hey, another great thing in Royal was the fact that they let us use Black Mask Akechi, the evil, quote-unquote, version of Akechi, in battle during the Royal content. That was amazing. Maybe they'll do it again with Takaya. I'm all for it. So yeah, this is one of the things I'm most excited about, mostly because it's new content. It's new content for characters who I think would really benefit from it, and in general, it just sounds really cool. I mean, fighting alongside Takaya, using him and his persona, all the animations are already there. Might as well, right? I am so down for this. Alright, time to dig deeper into the TGS content now. There's a lot of cool stuff here, because we got like 10 minutes of gameplay footage from TGS, so now let's actually take a deeper dive into it. So something cool at the forefront of Tartarus are these animations that are showing, so something cool in the entrance of Tartarus is the characters now have idle animations they go through, when standing here, waiting to be either assigned to your party or just waiting to go into Tartarus. Nothing too huge, but Akihiko's kind of, well, he was. Yeah, he kind of, hits him with a 1-2. Koromaru's, of course, just wagging his tail, and I'm a sucker for it every time. Look at that. Yukari sits on the steps. Mitsuru kind of just stands with her, seems like her hands on her hip. And I just standing in a robotic, stance, I guess, or kind of an A pose. And Fuka, oh boy, she is there. Alright, you've waited long enough. Let's get into some of the gameplay that we were shown during the 10 minutes of TGS footage. Now, there's nothing too interesting here, but there's still some to be talked about. Obviously, we already talked about the Theurgy attacks, which are really cool, but there's still some other things. For starters, both the trailer and TGS showed us the Baton Pass animation. Well, I say Baton Pass, but the mechanic is now called Shift in Persona 3 Reload. Here's how it looks when you perform a shift.
We wouldn't have had a reason to interfere.
I guess
so,
I was wrong.
Cool little animation. TGS showed us 2 more with Akihiko passing to Makoto and Junpei.
今この真田先輩から主人公で順平にもらいます。
We wouldn't have had a reason to interfere.
Cool. Yeah, this is a really cool animation. I'm really digging it. I like, obviously in Persona 5, the baton pass animation was a literal high five. Here, it's just kind of a stylish just look, and you know, it passes the attack over. Now, people might be a little afraid seeing this mechanic because a lot of people attribute baton pass to one of the mechanics that made Persona 5 a little too easy. So, translated from the TGS media briefing, Shift is original, but not so original. The difference is Baton Pass gave power boosts, but Shift is purely passing the attack over to another teammate. This is a pretty big deal. So in Persona 5, when you'd Baton Pass to another teammate, you'd give them a damage boost. In Royal, this was made even more insane by the damage boost being made even higher, and you can upgrade that damage boost by playing darts with your friends, right? So it was very, very powerful. Too powerful, to be honest with you. This one simply just passes the attack without giving a damage boost based on what we've heard here. So if that's the case, I think they probably realized that maybe the damage boost was a bit much. And yeah, I guess we'll see how this plays out. And perhaps the last thing I have to talk about here, we already talked about shuffle time a little bit in the last dump of info that we got, but here's how the all-out attacks look with shuffle time in between. We already saw in the victory animation from earlier that with the regular victory, the shuffle time just comes, you know, after you see the small little animation zoom out from whoever won the battle. Here's how it looks with all-out attacks. It's a little odd, but you might get used to it. We'll see.
じゃあ主人公が弱点ちょっとついてみましょう。カットイン入ります。はい、弱点で全員ダウンしましたので総攻撃ができます。
おお、ああ、いやなんかもう構図にすごくリスペクトを感じるというか。
そうですね、はい。はい、今回ね、こう選んでみますか。
それはね、もらっておきましょう。
Hit the card. Gives you the effect.
で最後ドーンとこう締めの
かっけ。
アドが入ります。
いいですね。
はい。
So it seemed like the original trailer showed us a really smooth version of the animation. The trailer that showed the all-out attack for the first time gave us a really smooth version of this animation. But it seems like when you get a shuffle time during an all-out attack, and I don't know if the all-out attack is going to be the trigger, one of the triggers anyways, for shuffle time. But it seems like when you have a shuffle time, you do the all-out attack, that the first part of the animation is kind of shown beforehand, then it goes into shuffle time, and then the animation completes itself after you go through the shuffle time. It's a little jarring, and I'm curious as to why they figured that'd be better than just putting it afterwards. But I don't honestly hate the idea. I think we're gonna have to see more all-out attacks in this style before we can make a full judgment. But I don't hate this idea, to be honest with you. It kind of gives you something stylish before the shuffle time, and then something stylish after, you know? Almost like the songs we were talking about earlier. There's a high, and then it kind of goes low, and then it builds back up. So who knows? Anyways, with the done and dusted all-out attack on screen, I think that's a fitting place to end it. That's pretty much all the information we have. Ha! Just kidding. You thought we would end it on just Makoto's all-out attack? Well, a day later, we now got footage of Yukari and Junpei's all-out attacks. From the Gamer Santai gameplay, we have a low-quality version of Junpei's, but it'll do. Nice. So that's how it looks here. It says that's the game, of course, and as you saw, as we mentioned with Makoto's, of course, the shuffle time comes in between. It seems like it really is probably going to be a shuffle time is always initiated when you win with all-out attack, because every all-out attack piece of all-out attack footage we've seen so far has always had shuffle time in between, besides the trailer one, but that was probably just edited. But yeah, he kind of falls down, you know, kind of playing into his a goofier trope, I guess, which isn't too bad if it's just for an animation like this. And then he kind of kicks up, which I really like. Got the hat, yeah. That's the game is his catchphrase. I guess it makes sense. Sports terminology, whatever. Yeah, it's all right. I think I prefer Makoto's kind of more slick kind of one or whatever, but I think this fits Junpei. I think it works for like a short little 5-second animation. Not like super blowing me away, but certainly certainly good. I certainly like it. And now from the 4Gamers footage, we actually have a high-quality version of Yukari's. It's unfortunate we didn't get a high-quality version of Junpei's from this. Then we'd have at least Makoto, Yukari, and Junpei's all-out attacks all in high quality, but I'll take Makoto and Yukari's. So here's how Yukari's looks. Okay, so there's Yukari's. What do I say about this one? For starters, I love the little pose here with the fist up. I don't know, I think it just looks good. Then Yukari kind of just takes, it seems like, I guess, kind of just takes a seat. I mean, I don't know how else you put it. Kind of hits like a pose. It seems like she's jumping here almost. Yeah, and then she kind of goes down, kneels, before hopping back up and doing what a girl boss like pose. And then her catchphrase is "There you have it," which seems like, to me, I get it's Japanese devs writing in English, so I get it's not going to be the most complicated English phrases, but I think the Persona 5 catchphrases were a little bit better than this game's. I don't know what "there you have it" necessarily means for Yukari in particular. I mean, that's the game works for Junpei because it's sports. Done and dusted doesn't really make too much sense for Makoto, but I can understand the protagonist, who's kind of a silent protag. It doesn't have, like, one set personality necessarily. Kind of having a more general one than this. Yukari is a character. Yukari is an actual fully fleshed out character. It's not a protagonist character that kind of might have a few different personalities depending on how you play the game. Yukari is one character regardless of how you play the game. So giving her something as basic as "there you have it," I don't know, it just seems like wasted potential. But I like the pose here. I think it's decent. Maybe a little underwhelming, but I don't honestly know what else you do for a character like this. The thing is, Persona 3 is a game that's a lot less flashy than, say, Persona 5. So while they were able to do kind of crazy poses because they're the Phantom Thieves and they've got all this flashiness to them, the Persona 3 characters don't have that aura to them as much. So I guess that's kind of just why we have these more laid-back kind of animations for them. It's not bad, but I probably would want a little bit more from this one. Worth mentioning, I don't know if I mentioned this in the last video, but for Makoto, we've seen two different versions of his all-out attack. One with the regular Seize armband, Jesus, and one with his more upgraded one that we see later in the game. The outfit's also just a little bit different in general, which means they did draw two versions of these all-out attacks. Now, this one from Junpei, these Junpei and Yukari all-out attacks have the regular armband because they're from the demo of the game, which is very, very early in the game. So they haven't gotten these upgraded armbands yet, but I'm going to assume they probably have multiple versions of theirs drawn as well. It makes me wonder that with the very little DLC costumes in this game, there's only 3 DLC costume sets from what I remember, the Phantom Thieves one, the Shujin Academy one, and the Yasogami High one. I wonder if they drew unique ones for that. Seeing Makoto and or just the entire group drawn in like the Phantom Thieves outfits or the Yasogami High outfits sounds it sounds interesting for the all-out attacks. I don't know if they'll go that far, but can you imagine if they changed the whole animation for those? If they really want to go all out with those costumes and maybe actually make them worth their price tag, wouldn't it be cool if the whole all-out attack animation was changed or something, and when Makoto was in the Joker outfit, for example, he would do something reminiscent of it? I don't know. I'm not saying they have to go that far. I won't necessarily be upset at them for not, but how cool would that be? And with these all-out attacks at the end, now I finally think this is a good place to end it. I said it wasn't as much as last time, but I've recorded literally an extra hour of content here. So after I edit this down, God knows how long this video will be. Fucking hell. For anyone who wants to keep up with my content, obviously subscribe, that should go without saying. But I did mention in the last video that I want to take a different approach to content after I finish my Vanilla vs. Royal video. Part 2 video, that is, a Kamoshida arc and prologue. That being said, that video is still not out, but I will prove to you that I have been working on it, okay? Will that alleviate some things? I think I severely underestimated how much time this fucking video would take. Between needing to edit it down, play through both versions of the game and compare the differences and whatnot, and also not get fatigued while doing so, it's quite a bit. But the happy note is currently I just finished up April 17th in game, going on to April 18th. And that is the point where the story pretty much has already fully developed in Persona 5, and now I just have to do the Kamoshida Palace differences. And then once I'm done that, probably a few cutscenes at the end of the arc, and then I'm finally done, so hopefully this video will get out soon. As I mentioned before, in the last video, the different approach I want to take to content is after I get this video out, instead of only doing big videos like Vanilla Royal and then these like little update videos, I want to kind of sprinkle more lower effort content in between, but not worse content. Don't get those two construed, okay? Don't conflate the two. Content that doesn't take me as much, doesn't take me this much time to complete, which is pretty much all of my series right now. But content that's still enjoyable, that's still high quality, and that's still good. I don't want to produce garbage, is what I'm trying to say. I don't want to produce slop, because I feel like it's very easy to fall into that. Don't want to call out anything, but I think there is a lot of trash content on YouTube. Not that, not that I think I'm higher than that, but I do. Alright, I take high pride in my content. But I just want to make things that won't take me as much time and effort, but will still be almost equally as enjoyable, or at least close. So yeah, that's it. That's it from me. That was Persona 3 Reload Info Dump number 3. I don't know how many more of these there'll be, but if there's a substantial amount of content in anything they do after this, I'll cover it. And yeah, that's pretty much it from me. And you see this video? Fuck it.